Hi there everyone! Life DIY Josie here, where life stands for low budget ideas for everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a collection of projects that I've done in the past using the wrought iron style plastic garden fence available at Dollar Tree. I hope that you can find inspiration from these budget-friendly ideas that you can use in your home. So you will need one of these garden fence that you can buy at the garden section of the Dollar Tree. A box cutter, wire cutter. You'll need your handy dandy glue gun, E6000. You will also need zip ties, paint of your choice, and silk flowers to decorate. So I'm flipping the fence, and at the back there are 4 sections here, and what I'm going to do is I am going to be cutting a small portion, probably 1 or 2 inches from the bottom, using my scissors, snipping this portion here around an inch and a half, no longer than 2 inches, because you don't want to rip it open. You just need it so that you can actually bend this section here. If you have a flat or bullnose plier, you can also use that in order for you to bend this really much easier. I'm just trying to guide this with my hand because I don't want to break this section that I'm working on. So I am just going to continue with each section to bend it, including the scroll or the curve, until I reach the desired shape. Now I'm connecting both ends. As you can see, I am already almost getting there. The indication would be it's more square now at the bottom, and I have the bend that I need. I'm using my X-Acto or box cutter, and I'm just kind of slicing it in one direction and then multiple times until I can bend it and then snap it just like so. I'm setting that aside, and I'm going to be using all 3 later on in the project. So I'm going to continue and cut the rest. Okay, so that's it. See? Next, I'm going to go ahead and connect again both ends using the kind of locking mechanism that they have put in place to connect the fences together, and just kind of lock it in place. And then I am going to be applying hot glue or my E6000 on that portion that I broke accidentally earlier. Next, I'll be using these zip ties that I got from the Dollar Tree as well to help in connecting and bending the top of this lantern slash bird cage. So as you can see, first I am going to try to bend it towards the inside, all 4 sections, but I am going to be connecting them. I think 2 at a time would be perfect. There's 2 sections there on each edge. I will try to connect them that way. A lot of times they may not be enough to hold, especially if what you're holding is kind of trying to fight back like this one. So I will also be using glue, my hot glue, in order to keep the zip ties in place. I'm trying to pull up the zip tie as high as possible so that the top will be a little bit more domed or bent. And I am putting or applying some of the hot glue here underneath this zip tie, and I'll do that in all 4 sections here, 4 corners, If you prefer, you can double up on the zip ties as well, because you're going to be able to camouflage that later with your decorations or with paint. So what I'm doing here is just tightening it up, and then I am going to be trimming each of the zip tie using my wire cutter. I prefer the wire cutter because it is sharper than my scissors, but you can use the scissors as well. So I am just doing some of the finishing touches here, making sure that this portion here is tight and secure, and I have the dome effect that I am satisfied with. So here it is now with a little bit more dome on the top, and it has taken the shape that I like. I'll be using my craft or acrylic paint, and I'm gonna be adding some kind of a distressed finish here, like it's a weathered look. I don't know if you've seen it out there, the real iron grills, sometimes they look like they're weathered and they have peeling paint. So that's what I'm trying to do here to make it a little bit more rustic. And I am just going to just do this all around, also painting the inside. As you can see here, I'm also using the same sponge brush to paint the inner part of the bird cage / lantern. And then on the narrower portion, because there is an indentation inside, I use my brush with smaller bristles so that I can reach every nook and cranny. I'm also painting those 3 pieces that I cut from the bottom of the fence. Yes, I'm using all the parts here, and then I will be putting them on, act like an enclosure on the top to finish it off. So I've been placing them in alternate direction so that they will look a little bit more even. So it's kind of dirty when you're working with paint and then hot glue, but then once this is done, you will be so amazed. So here it is, all dried up, and now I'm gonna be decorating it with some of the silk flowers from the Dollar Tree. I like this one because it has some spindle or long stems, and I want it to look like it's climbing from the left side or one side, cascading down from the top. So I'm gonna be just applying hot glue here. I'm gonna shorten this one by about a couple of inches so that I can have this a little bit more flushed at the bottom and it's not gonna be too high. So I'm just adding the flowers where I think they can fill the space so that that bottom part of that long stem there won't show. So I'm grouping them into 3 peonies and then 3 hydrangeas and then filling the spaces in between. I'm also adding this faux bird that I got also from the Dollar Tree. All of these are optional. If you don't want to add any embellishments, you can just use this structure on its own and just put probably an LED candle in the middle. But I want to embellish it, and you know the good part about this, I can change it through the season. And here it is. Here's the finished project. You can use this as a centerpiece. You can put this on top of a mantle. This will be a perfect decoration or centerpiece for weddings, baby shower, Mother's Day celebration, birthday celebration. So the possibilities are endless for this design. I didn't put any bottom on this one, but you can certainly add one if you prefer. I just want it to just be kind of like a cloche that you can just put on top. And here it is with just a charger. It can replace the color of the charger for the season. This gold charger is from the Dollar Tree. They come in different colors, silver, also pearly whites, and I think they also come in red and green during the holidays. And that LED candle, you can add that too, just to add like a dramatic effect. And this is beautiful, especially at night when you turn off the lights. So yeah, I really love this a lot. I'll be using this mirror here. I love this mirror because it's already is painted, or it has a silver finish, and then there's also a portion in the inner frame that has the black that can match the wrought iron. So that means I don't even have to paint the wrought iron. Make sure you're using a heavy-duty, sharp pair of scissors. So I flip this over. It's easier to cut from the underside or the back side of the fence. And I'm using just the corner or the edge, and then cutting also the spike or the stake at the bottom, and then cutting also the side, because this is the edge. So there's this side wherein it's the place where they hook up the fences together. So I'm cutting those two pieces there too using the same scissors. You can use also X-Acto knife or box knife. As you can see, I'm using both so that I can have a clean straight edge. Next, clean the mirror with a dryer sheet. I use one. Next, I am going to be placing it and see where I'm going to be gluing it, because right now I'm going to be just using my hot glue. Now you could use E6000 or Fix-All or Gorilla Glue or even Super Glue, anything that's probably more permanent than a hot glue. But I'm using hot glue right now because oftentimes I do change decor or I dismantle things, and plus so far things have worked out fine for me if I use just my hot glue. And since this is plastic over mirror, I think this will hold up well. Plus the votive candle holder that I'm using is super light. It's not breakable as well. So I am applying the hot glue in portions where there are raised corners. Just apply the glue where the connections intersect, but yeah, the raised portion so that it will stick to the mirror. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it to center, and I'm removing all those webs created by the hot glue. Then figure out where I'm going to be placing this votive light that I got from the Dollar Tree. And at first I was looking at the bottom part, but I think it's better to put it up here in the middle because I want to be able to take advantage of that kind of like triangular design that's here at the bottom here. So I just want to put it in the middle, and all I'm doing here is applying my hot glue, and then I am just going to place this votive light candle smack in the middle. And I like this design because it also kind of complements the scroll that's on the fence, as well as the black color that's in the inner frame of this mirror. So I don't really need to paint anything or color anything. This votive candle light, I think I got this a year ago for $2 for $1. So here's the finished project. Excuse the streaks on the mirror, I think, because when I was handling it and kind of repositioning things, there were some streaks that I left, but I'm gonna clean that up later. But here's how it looks like. So what I like about this votive candle is that there is a control underneath, so you don't have to worry about reaching it because it's protruding, so it's easier to control. And here it is turned on. Wouldn't it be lovely when it's at night? As well as if you have a pair of this and then you put probably a painting in the middle. You will need 4 of these 8x10 photo frames. Using this one that has an inner matting, because the 8x10 actually is inside the matting, so it gives me more space. I also need the garden fences that you can get at the gardening section of the Dollar Tree. So I need 2.5 of this. So this is 1 and 2, and then I have a leftover actually from my previous project. Next, I'm going to be using a pair of scissors, so I suggest use one that is really very sharp. You can also use a box cutter, also an E6000, but along with it I'm going to be using also my handy dandy glue gun. I'll be painting this white because I'm going to be doing the weathered or distressed look, kind of like what I did with my birdcage lantern. I'll be using white and this punch brush. I'm going to be cutting this into 2. So I'm going to cut in the middle. But first, I will be removing the stakes at the bottom. So it'll be easier for me to cut, especially at the center where one of the stakes or spikes is shared. You're probably wondering why I have a hair dryer or hair blower here. So I'm going to be using it here to cut the areas that are thick so that my blade or box cutter can cut through. So as you can see, I was just pointing it close or putting or applying heat, and yeah, it cuts better. So that's it, look. Now I'm gonna cut the middle. Now the middle part is easier. Just cut in the middle. Oh, voila! So that's how I split this up. Next, I am going to be removing the backing or everything that's inside of each frame. I will not be removing all those metals that are holding the glass. I will just be folding them flat. I'll be using my hot glue to hold the glass in place. You can reinforce once you connected or inserted the mirror, still reinforce on the outside. And this is where you can use also your E6000. That's why I showed an E6000. But in the interest of time for me, I will do the E6000 later on the perimeter. Now let me just show you a quick fix, because when you're slicing this or you're trimming, one side is thicker or wider than the other one, because you know, if you're splitting it in the middle. But I found a way to work it where I can patch it and then make it a little bit more even. Okay, use this one here, this foam backing that is inside the frame matting, and it's perfect. Actually, this length is the perfect length. And what I did on this side here, I just trimmed it to size, and it has its own sticky thing too, but you could also use your hot glue if you want to. So I'm just gonna apply it here, kind of calculate or estimate the width, kind of like eyeball it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least it's not as thin anymore. So I'm just gonna trim it to size here and to shape, and then paint it, and you'll hardly notice the patch. So I'm just gonna make it a little, kind of do it here like that. I'll just put some hot glue here because it's starting to peel on me. Next, I am applying a weathered look. I'm just dabbing some craft paint. You can use any type of paint if you want to do spray painting. So after I'm done with the front of each panel, I am also painting the back using a bristle brush so that I can reach inside those hollow parts of the fence. A wrought iron that has peeling paint, and it gives a rustic and weathered look that way. Pressing this. I'm also doing the same painting techniques on all 4 picture frames. Okay, so let's just start putting them together. So I'm gonna start off putting this on each frame. Okay, so the horizontal, when I say horizontal, is the one that's wider. So I am going to be putting hot glue on the portions that will touch the wooden frame. Then I am going to be putting the fence on top of the frame. So I am just adjusting it so that it's straight, and once I'm satisfied with the way it looks, I'm just gonna press it. Next, I am going to be putting the single panels that will be on the one that I'm going to be placing on the front and back of this terrarium. Since I'm going to be using only the single panel, I'll be applying glue in different parts that will touch the glass. And then I will be placing it on top of the glass. I am just eyeballing it, making sure that it's centered. So let me show you how I am going to be piecing them together. This one would be like this, not like this, because then it will be blocking the roof. So I'm just going to be putting it like this. Then apply the glue all the way here. So all the way. Generous with your glue. Make sure you have the right side up. Clean it up later, don't worry about it too much now, and then connect the two like so. And that's instant gratification, right? Because it's hot glue. So I'm gonna be putting this one here on this side here. Don't worry about chipping the paint, so we touch it later. But yeah, all the way down here. Okay. Okay, so I'll be applying the glue here and glue here. Just giving you another angle so that you could see it better. So glue here and glue here. So here you go. Make sure that it's straight before it dries. So I'm gonna be moving this portion here so that it too will be straight or flush. Okay. Inside, that's when I will apply my E6000 later. But here's one of my roof. So I can now put it here like this, like so, and then meeting here. So what I'm probably gonna do is use my handy dandy zip tie here. I'm gonna be putting the zip tie. I already put one on this side. I'm gonna lower it a little bit here in the middle so that you could see what I'm trying to do. Trying to align them as best as I could. And then I'm just gonna be inserting my, okay, not too tight, enough to expand it. Okay. Okay, now that's much better. So it's just to anchor it. My apologies on this portion. Some of the angles are not visible inside the video frame, but what I'm doing here is I am applying glue at the bottom of each roof and then connecting each side on top of the frame that is horizontal in placement. So connect the first one first. Okay, and then do the other side as well. Now you can safely kind of like lean it. So I'm gonna twist this so that I could see the other side, so you could see what I did here too. See that? Then I'm gonna be doing it here. Sorry folks, my camera is not high enough for this piece because this is really a tall terrarium, so I am not able to capture the entire piece because it's huge and my stand is not that tall or high. Anyway, I'm just repeating the same thing I've done on the other side by hot gluing it. After attaching each side of the roof, I am releasing the zip ties because they were just there to kind of keep the roof in place, and then I'm applying hot glue to connect the two panels together. So I'm just putting glue on the very top center, the highest point or pitch of this roof, on both sides to connect the two panels together. So I hope I'm making sense, but hopefully the video can show you what I was doing. So here it is, the final product. I must say I'm really loving this project. It may be a little bit time consuming to make because of the painting and the drying, but it's all worth it. To give you a little bit of an overview, I used one fence cut in half or cut into two for the roof, then one fence also for the ones on the side that I placed horizontally, cut in half as well, and then half a fence for the front and back, which I cut into individual or single panel. So total 2.5 fences. You still have to buy 3 because you cannot really buy anything in half there at the Dollar Tree, but it's still a very cost-effective project. It only cost me a total of less than $7 to make. So you will need 6 of these 8x10 frames. Also going to be using this is the plastic garden fence. I'm also going to be using some burlap, and the Dollar Tree occasionally would sell burlap. You'll also need a glue gun. I will be doubling up with the E6000 as well once I'm done with this project and if I want to keep it all permanent. First, remove the backing from each of the picture frames and then separate the metals and flatten them aside and then glue the glasses on the frames. I'm cutting the stakes or the spikes from the fence, and I'm also going to be cutting the nails, or the connectors on the sides or the edges of this garden fence. Once I've removed all the edges there and the spikes or stakes, I am cutting each panel because I need 4 individual pieces so that I can attach them onto the glass of the frame. So sharp scissors will do just fine. Now I'm fast forwarding this section too because this is also another clip that I used for the other video where I made the terrarium, and this is how I did it to make each side even, because once you cut each panel, some are thinner than the others. So I just used the foam backing from the frame. So I have 4 pieces here and they all look even, and I'm still going to paint over also those glue residues there. Make sure that you also paint the back as well as the front. With the same technique, I am also distressing or applying a weathered look or whitewashing my picture frames. Once I'm done painting both the fences and the frames, I am going to be gluing the fence panels that I cut up individually onto the glass on each picture frame. Then I'm going to be attaching the fence onto the glass of each picture frame. I'm just going to be eyeballing it, making sure that it is centered. Notice that I positioned the frame vertically, and I will repeat this 4 times. To assemble the bottom of the box, I'll be using the backing that the picture frame came with. I removed the hooks that they came with so that they won't scratch the countertop or the table where it's going to be placed. So I'm going to be using the brown side where I'm going to be gluing onto it the burlap. The reason why I'm using the brown side is because the burlap is brown and the burlap has holes and you can see through it. With the brown side up, at least it will be more even in color rather than the black side that will show through the holes of the burlap. I'm just going to be cutting it to size, maybe leaving it a little bit of space on the edge so that when I glue it, it will not stick out. So now I'm applying dabs of glues on the edges or perimeter of this cardboard box, and then I am going to be attaching the piece of burlap that I cut. So I put the glass as well as this matting to frame the burlap so that these sides here will not show. So to illustrate it better for you guys, what I'm doing is one of the panels, I put it down, and then this is the trick so that you can do this on your own or without clamps, okay? And then make sure that this is just flush. There's no overlap or overhang on the frames that I'm connecting. All these 4 will be standing up in the direction of the fence. The overhang will be in here inside but not outside, okay? So let me just put some hot glue. Make sure the directions are right. Whenever you're connecting these things, take your time, okay? So I am going to be connecting here so make it easier. Making sure that the corners are flush. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing here the same thing I've done here. So then this one, now I'm going to be making sure that I connect this flush on this side. Corners connect, straight line. Okay, now that's that. Apply glue here and then glue here. And then that's it. Everything, even the corners, top and bottom. I know I'm not captured on all the angles here. Let me just remove my camera. There you go. Let me just show that to you. Aerial view. There's my belly. The magic of glue gun. And then I'm gonna be adding E6000 later on. Again, once I'm sure everything is all set. I'm gonna try it first. And then just make sure that I have the same overhang on this side. Okay, on the horizontal or on the long side of the bottom, I am going to be flush. And then on each side of the shorter side, or there'll be a little bit overhang. So there'll be a little bit overhang here, and then a little bit overhang here. So what I'll do is I'll just make sure that it's flushed here and here, and then I have exact amount of space on each side, making sure that everything is straight. Okay, so putting in hot glue here. So if you want to just raise the whole thing, and then quickly, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be applying here closer to the glass rather than outside, because I have an overhang. But this one I can do this a little centered on this side, okay, because there's no overhang here, but this one is closer to the glass. This one would work. With glue gun, you could still move it and then make some changes later. Now to make the cover or the top, I am going to be using one of the backing of the other frame, and then I'm going to be covering it with my burlap, and I am going to be attaching it with hot glue again, like so. Then I'm going to be using an extra backing with the black showing. I've been removing also the hook so that they don't show up. It'll give it a more professional finish. I am going to be applying glue, and then I'm going to be connecting this cardboard onto the bottom of the one that I had burlap attached on. I'm using my scissors to trim off all the loose threads. Before I put it in here, I might as well do the cut, right? So using a ruler as a guide, I am going to be slitting this center about 1/2 inch in height, and then about probably 6 inches to 7 inches wide, so that I have enough space for the cards to go through. I'm also using my scissors to trim the cut area of the burlap, and then using again my cutter to cut the remaining corners and edges. Once I cut and trim all the excess or loose threads, I am going to be applying hot glue to be able to stick this side here of the edges of the burlap so that they don't fray any further. Kind of trim off all the loose ends, and then I am going to be adding lace trim on the surrounding to protect that area and also to give it a better attractive look. So I'm just applying this lace ribbon that complements well the burlap design. I will be also putting it into the frame without the glass, of course, otherwise you will not be able to use the hole. So this is how it should look, and it will be your cover or your lid for your wedding card box. So just to show you, there you go. It will be just dropping there, and the cards are secure. They don't bounce anywhere else. The glass will protect them. So yeah, this one you can either leave it like this, it's removable, or what you can do is you can put hinges. You can put hinges at the back, and actually put hinges, one on each side or corner here. You can just open and close it, and then probably put some kind of a lock here, decorative lock. Okay, so here's the multi-function. I use it multi-function because it's not just for wedding cards or greeting cards that have cash or money inside. It doesn't have to be just for that. You can remove the cover and just use this as a lantern. I am going to show you how you can also decorate this. So here's the finished project, everybody. I've decided to show it to you as if I'm using it as a lantern or a terrarium without the cover. It's a flower arrangement that I've had for 7 years now, and all I added were some of the fairy lights. And I know the Dollar Tree sells fairy lights. So to you, there's no cover right now. I just had a crazy idea and I added the bird cage DIY I created. Put it on top. It looks like a huge bird cage. It makes for a nice home decor also if you have high ceilings. And here it is at the center of our dining room. It's so dramatic. It's so beautiful. I love it. You will need 2 plastic garden fences from the Dollar Tree. You'll also need 4 11 by 14 frames. And I got one that has brown frame. Doesn't matter as long as you have 4. A glue gun, E6000 to reinforce, and paintbrush and acrylic paint. First, I'm preparing my garden fences. I will be cutting the stakes, or those pointy ends there that you see at the bottom, 3 from each of the garden fences, and also the sides, you know, the ones that show the nails, you know, like the connections. So I'll be cutting them. Anyway, this is the area that I'm going to be cutting. I'm going to be cutting the small pieces first, and then I'll go on to the larger pieces, which are the stakes. So this is how each of the garden fences should look after you cut the sides and the bottom pointed ones. Next, I am preparing all the picture frames. I'm removing the backing as well as the glasses from the frames. And that's part of the safety features that I'm doing here, because again, I could probably very well keep the glass on and then glue it, but then should there be any earthquakes or maybe an accident, you know, I'm a little paranoid when we're putting something on top of our headboard, so I didn't want anything to cause any bodily injury or harm. So I'm removing the glasses as well, and I'm saving them for future projects. And also I'm going to be removing the metals that hold the glasses onto the frames. I'll be using a plier to make it easier to remove. Next, I am using acrylic paint and just a simple paintbrush to paint my plastic garden fences. And just like what I've done with my previous fence projects, I only use a simple technique, just like a dry brush, not really covering every nook and cranny with the paint. Still see some of the black showing. I just want to make it appear like there's paint peeling and it's weathered or distressed look. Also, I didn't need to paint the underside of this fence, and I'll be doing the same thing with the frames just because they will not show through. While with my other projects, because they're kind of like three-dimensional, that you will see the inside, this one will lay flat on the wall, so I didn't need to paint the back. Now as for the picture frames, kind of like the fences, I'm only painting the front or the surface and not the back of the frames, because again they're going to be laying flat on the wall, and I position it in a horizontal way so you can see it better, and I'm using the same dry brush or weathering brush technique for this, and allowing some of the color from the frame, the original color, to show through. Once they dry, I'm going to be connecting them two at a time, so the shorter sides with the E6000, but since the E6000 takes time to cure, I am going to be using also my hot glue so that I will be able to connect them and make them a little bit sturdy while the E6000 cures or dries. After connecting the frame, I flip the frames over so that I can also apply hot glue onto the seams at the back of the frames, just to reinforce this connection that I am making. I repeated the same technique for the other two frames, so once they dry up, I am connecting the long sides of the frames that I have connected to the other long sides of the frames of the other two that I have connected. So just like earlier, I'm using E6000 and then hot glue. Next, I am going to be attaching the garden fences, one on each side, and I am doing it on the far edge or side of the windows, one on the left, one on the right, because I'm going to be positioning this on a horizontal position where the long sides are up and the shorter sides on the side. But it's up to you if you want to do this a little bit taller rather than horizontal, or do it more vertical where the short sides are up and then the long sides are on the sides. You can do it that way too, but I'd rather do it this way. I'm just applying hot glue here on the portion where they can touch and not the hollow portions of the frames. As you can see, those ones that are like triangle looking, let me just put it up close here. The triangle looking portions there are the ones that are protruding that will touch the frames, so that's where I'm applying the glue. And then in the middle, I am going to be just glopping some glue there. Then I'm just going to be attaching to the frames, and I'm just making sure that they all line up with each other, and then the one right that connects to the middle is centered, everything is even, and they are sitting properly together. So I'm going to be adding some more glue here and use hot glue here. I didn't use E6000 here anymore because the materials will connect well. The important thing for me is to connect the frames with E6000 so that it's more stable and sturdy. Now with this one, the hot glue will do well because I've done this so many times, attaching the frames to the fences, and they are fine. Okay, so I'm just adding some more glue just to make sure that they are attaching well. So I just repeated the process on the opposite end. Next, I am going to be making a wreath. So I have this wreath form that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I have 3 bouquets of flowers, and I chose pink and some blush there, and I'm going to be decorating this wreath. But first off, I am just going to wrap the wreath with the burlap ribbon. I use one roll of this turquoise or teal burlap ribbon. I like this a lot. Whenever I see them at the Dollar Tree, I buy 2 or 3 rolls of them. I've been using them on my projects because I like the color. So I've used up the whole roll, and I just kind of wound it around the floral form or the wreath just to cover them, because I don't want that the sides that of the filo form and then the inside would show. So at least if it's showing, it has this decorative turquoise or teal burlap to show, and it's really very pretty. And this is also a tip for you if you want to save some money. Instead of buying so many silk flowers, in this case I only purchased 3 types that I'm going to be using, so that's just $3, and then I'm just going to be inserting them there, making sure I move also the burlap to cover the green floral form. And if you want to use something else, like some folks use moss, but sometimes I don't like the smell of the reindeer moss. It's nauseating, and I don't think I would want that in my bedroom, and I may not be able to sleep. I may wake up with a bad migraine or headache. But use this instead. But feel free to use whatever you want. If you want to use dried moss, the only thing with dried moss, even if you spray them, sometimes they don't stay and they will fall off. That's another thing, another issue that I don't want to deal with using that. Now all I'm doing here is just alternating. So it was, as you could see, I did the 4 flowers there first, and then I'm adding another one, which is the hydrangea, and then a 3rd type of flower, which is the pink peony. That's what I'm going to be doing. So 3 flowers repeated 4 times, so 12 pieces. I actually have some leftovers because some of them have 5 flowers in them, but some have only, some even have 6. So I didn't really use up the whole 3 bunches or bouquets of flowers. So here it is, guys. Also have those ribbons that I'm going to be using to hang, and this is how I hung it. I am actually gluing it with some hot glue at the back of the frame, and then adding the hook that came from the backing of the frame that I removed earlier. Feel free to reinforce it with a stronger bond like E6000 again, so that it will have a stronger hold. And here it is, the final product. Time I have listed here the items that you will use for this project. I've also listed them in the description box below. Majority of the items here are from the Dollar Tree. First, I'm preparing the garden fences by cutting the fixtures on the sides. Those are the nails and the hooks where the nails go to. And I'm just using the sharp scissors to accomplish it. I'm also going to be using the sharp scissors to cut the stakes at the bottom, you know, those pointy things at the bottom of each fence. It's easier to accomplish this by cutting from the underside because it is hollower. For some reason, it is easier to do it that way. So this is how it should look after you remove those items. Now I am going to be connecting the 2 fences together. I'm going to be flipping it over right side down so that it'll be easier for me to connect them. I'll be using my handy dandy zip ties. I'm going to be tying some ties here, as you could see, and then I'm kind of putting one on top of the other so they align. And total cable ties I used are 6, and then making sure that they're tight. And then I will be cutting them using either my pair of scissors, but this time I'm actually using my wire cutter because the wire cutter is sharper and easier to handle, especially since I'm using this thicker and bigger cable ties. am using my leftover paint, so I mixed it with a little bit of water. I've learned that when you dilute your paint and you want to do distress, it's easier that way, and of course your paint will last longer. And I'll be also doing the distress method or technique on the galvanized or thin planters, and you get this at the Dollar Tree as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put paint on the top and on the sides. So I don't need to really paint the back because it will not show up. Only the ones that show up will I be applying the paint, in order to save not just time but also materials. If you notice, I am not doing a brush stroke technique here. I am just kind of dabbing the paint, or using kind of like a stippling method. You can also use sponges, like makeup sponges or any type of sponge that you may have at home, to distress your tin can. But I just decided to use the brush technique because I kind of like some of the texture it gives. So to add a little bit more distress finish on this tin planter, I am adding acrylic paint in color black. And I'm only going to be dabbing a little bit of that color here and there, and I'm also going to brush it over the words, you know, the flowers and garden, and also the flower and planter, so that it will show up. This also allows me to give it a little bit more depth without using sandpaper. So this is more like a dry brush technique. I'm just dabbing my paintbrush into the black acrylic paint and then dabbing the excess off on the paper plate, and then brushing it onto my tin can so that it doesn't really run off and it doesn't cover as much of the white paint. After several strokes of the brush, the words are starting to pop up, and that's exactly how I want it, so that the words will still appear. So I've decided to tone down the thick streaks of black paint by adding a little bit of the white acrylic paint that has been diluted with a bit of water. So just kind of trying to do some kind of mixing here so that I can kind of lightly apply it on those that are too thick, so that it doesn't look like charcoal. I know I want it distressed, but I don't want it to look sloppy or dirty. So afterwards, I'm gonna let this dry and then assemble. Now that my fences and my tin planters are dried up, I am going to try to assemble them. Now let me just show you the different options that you may want to assemble this. You can do this either horizontally or vertically. This one, you can use just one planter in the middle here, and it's horizontal, so that you can actually appreciate the quote-unquote wrought iron. Okay, so you could do it here like a vertical kind of thing, so to hang it on the wall if you're just going to put flowers on it. Now if you want it functional, you can also put flowers horizontally, and then if you're not doing flowers, is multifunctional for storage. Okay, so let's say for example one is for mail and one is a catch-all for, let's say, car keys, wallets, whatever. So, and then you can hang it on the wall, and then you can probably clip on some messages here and stuff like that. I'm gonna put some craft sticks here so that there's some kind of flat connection. So just cut this in half. Let's put it here. So I'm just connecting this or attaching this to the back of this tin planter using my hot glue, but you would have to use a stronger bond glue, kind of like E6000. So I'm using just the regular hot glue here for the purpose of this demo, because I'm not quite sure yet how it's going to work, to be honest. But if I like how it goes, then I will reinforce it with my E6000 or any strong bond glue. So now, as you can see, it's kind of like a cross or a small T, and then I'm also putting hot glue there to attach it to my fence, and I'm going to be giving you a better view of this. I know it's kind of hard to capture this kind of a big project in frame, so please bear with me. So this is how it should look. Make sure it's centered on this portion here of the left panel. And I'm going to be showing you also how I am going to be reinforcing this when I flip it over. But let me just connect the other planter onto the right side of this fence. Put it forward down here where it intersects here. Here, this one here. So make sure that it's kind of at the same level as the one on the left, and then press it so that it attaches well. Now, if you want to reinforce it some more, you can do so at the back with more sticks. That's how the back looks. So there's still a gap here. So I'm going to be putting that there, and then putting a little bit more glue. And in your case, put some more epoxy. Okay. There we go. Let it dry, and then voila. See? And then now you can put your plants or flowers. So here's the finished project, everybody. And all I did was just add my flowers, made sure that the flowers that I put on the left is the same one as on the right, so that when it came out, it all came out like this, like twins. So anyway, if you don't want a double planter, you can do a single one, cut it in the middle, you can separate them. I imagine this on church pews or the aisle for weddings. And also I want to use this as a home decor. And since this is created in a horizontal way, if I don't like to put flowers, I can use this as an organizer like I mentioned earlier. I kind of want to use this for an entrance where it can be a catch-all for, you know, wallets, car keys, mails. Wrought iron on the top you can actually use to add messages, you know, use some clothespins, you know, the wooden clothespins that you can also buy from the Dollar Tree. Add some photos or some string lights. The possibilities are a lot for this one. You can also decorate your wall in your home, indoors and outdoors, front porch or back patio. Here's a Pinterest-inspired headboard that is easy on the budget. So I'll be using my daughter's old double bed. I am going to be using 6 garden fences. So if you are going to be doing this project, make sure that you have at least 6 garden fences for a double bed or a queen size bed. It should work also. If you have a king size bed, you probably would need a couple more of these garden fences, and you would need to split them in half. Now for a twin size bed, I think you can use just a single panel and then just make it work for a twin size bed. Again, total of 3 rows. I'll be using Dollar Tree zip ties to connect them together, and it doesn't matter what color because I am painting this, and I also have this pair of scissors from Dollar Tree. Now you need a good pair of scissors because sometimes it's so hard to cut these fences. My previous DIYs, I show you other ways to cut this. Basically, you just need to cut the sides of each garden fence, the ones where there's that pointy like a nail on the side, and on the left side there's the hole, because Typically, you would connect this if you will use this in the garden, but I am not going to be using that. Now, the bottom part, you know, the two garden fences at the bottom that I will be putting as my first row from the bottom, I would have to cut also the 3 stakes. You see those pointed stuff there at the bottom? I will cut them from each of the garden fences that I will put at the very bottom. I will not do that on the upper ones because I will need them to hold on and connect them together so that it looks like they are fused, or kind of, you know, how they make wrought irons, they connect them together. So after doing the cuts that I mentioned, again, remember, do not remove the stakes from 4 of them, only from 2 of them, but cut all the connectors on each side of all the 6 fences. Now I'm going to be assembling them. First, I'm going to be connecting the 2 bottom fences. Okay, those will be the ones closest to the bed. That's going to be the bottom part of my headboard. As you could see, after I make the cut, now they are flush, right? They can sit next to each other, and it'll be easier for me to connect and without all those connectors or hardwares. And I'm going to be using my zip ties. To make it easier, I suggest flipping over your fences. When you're going to be making the connections, don't do it on the front, do it while they are flipped over like this on the back. And make sure that they line up. I'm going to be putting 2 zip ties here first, one on the top portion and one on the bottom portion. I made sure that they're not overlapping each other, but they are next to each other. Now, that since it's still a little wobbly, to reinforce this one, I'm going to be using popsicle sticks. So I'm going to do all the connections this way first before I reinforce with popsicle sticks. I'm going to go ahead and use the popsicle sticks that I got also at Dollar Tree to strengthen the connection. So I'm going to just try to put them, you know, in the gap in between the 2 zip ties to just make sure that it doesn't wobble. I could have put the 3rd zip tie there, but it's still not going to be as secured as putting this popsicle stick. So I'm just going to go ahead and use hot glue and apply it in the sections to kind of make it a little bit more stronger. The popsicle sticks are longer than the spaces I'm going to put them on. I use my scissors to just trim them to size. I flip them over again so that I could see the front of the fences to make sure that the connection would be fine. I'm just trying to plan it out well, and as you could see at the center of those upper 2 rows, there will be 2 stakes on each at the center of them that would be next to each other. But since they are kind of splitting up, I'm going to use a zip tie. I am putting them together and connect them onto the top middle portion of the lower fence. As you can see here, I think it's best for me to just show you what I'm doing because it's easier than me explaining it. So I flipped it over so that you could see how it looks. See those 2? I tie them up like that, and then I'm going to put a popsicle stick here so that it won't wobble. And to protect this also, I will put popsicle sticks. So I'll be doing that on all of the center. And as you can see on the edges here, I make sure that the pointed stuff kind of disappears or it's hidden. And make sure also that this one actually should go up to this. So I kind of pushed it up a little bit so that they are together. Before I continue tying up the rest, I am adding more popsicle sticks just to make sure that any place where I can reinforce the connection, I have the popsicle sticks as an extra backing or support so that this will not buckle. And then I'm gonna go ahead and connect the other stakes to the other garden fence. I'm trying to be very careful not to show the pointed end, so I'm gonna make sure that when I connect them really close to each other, and making sure again the arch on the bottom fence is almost lining up or butted to the bottom of the upper fence. See, as I push it down, make sure it's snug and that they are really snug. The same thing on the second stake, and just trying to make sure that they are aligned. They're all aligned, and then I'm putting this connection or this zip tie where I can hide the pointed stuff best without ruining the look. It has to be kind of like a one piece. Imagine this, if this is a real wrought iron, they have to be welded together. I'm just using zip tie to weld it, and I'm just connecting them as seamless as possible. And each time, whenever it slides a little bit off, I make sure that the top of the arch connects to the bottom straight line of the upper fence. And I'll just show you how I did the other two stakes. Show you, see, they're all lined up on those tips. This and this and then that. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and repeat what I've done on the top row. Just repeat what I've done with the second row, connecting it to the bottom row, and then the third or the top row connecting it to the second or the middle row. Now I flipped it onto its front so that you could see, look, they are connected. I didn't add any zip ties to the arches. I could have done that, but I decided not to. I'm going to be painting the zip ties so that it will blend in like it doesn't exist or it's not too obvious. So I'm using just this elephant color or shade by Waverly. It's a chalk paint that I got at Walmart, and I'm just painting any areas that may show up that is not the same color as the garden fence. So it's as close to the garden fence color that I could find. Just use a couple or 3 coats of this elephant gray and you should be set. So elephant gray is just like dark gray. I also painted the popsicle stick side, anything that I could see that is different color. I hung the headboard 5 to 6 inches higher than the bed so that when I put the pillows, I will have space for the pillows and I will not cover the headboard. And also, the head of anyone laying down will not hit the headboard accidentally. Chances are, if that happens, may yank off the headboard. That's why you have to also secure it onto the wall. I did it with 2 carpenter nails, and I'll show it to you. I also painted the carpenter nails with the same color as the zip ties. Hey, let me go closer so that you will see the nails. So there's one on the right side here. Let me just show it up close. On the very top, ignore that hole above it. That was a nail hole. That was a wrong positioning. It was just too high, so I just had to lower it. And then on the left, I had another one right there. You can hardly notice it because, again, I painted it with the same color as the garden fence, which is the elephant gray. And you can add more nails if you want to secure it better. This one is good enough and secured enough in my opinion, but do whatever you think is best for your situation. So that's it, everyone. Thanks for joining me here on this long collection. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please let me know in the comment section down below which one is your favorite. I hope you have a good day, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me here again, and I hope to see you again on my next video. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.